Hello and welcome to Bulimia Sucks. I'm your host, Kate Hudson-Hall, and thank you so much for listening. Now, this is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting, but also inspiring conversations based on an eating disorder. And then episodes will include talking with people who are struggling now with their eating disorder, sharing their personal stories and their difficult journeys and their steps taken into their recovery. And then also to people who have overcome an eating disorder. And then also to professionals who work with people with an eating disorder who may have not had an eating disorder or may have. So it's quite a nice variety of different people. Now, if you are interested in my book, Bulimia Sucks, the audio book now is live on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. So if you'll be interested in like a free copy of that, if you email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com, then I can send you the code so you can download it for free if you're interested. And the other thing that I have worked on is my coloring books, my beautiful coloring books. So there are 4 coloring books and they are all on Amazon. If you put my name into Amazon, you can find them. And they are, so they've got a picture of a beautiful mandala with a very special quote over the top of it to color in. And then on the other side, there is a question or questions about that quote, that what you can learn about yourself from that quote to be able to help you in your journey. So there's one for bulimia, anorexia, binge eating, and then also there's an anxiety one. So if you're interested, check them out. Now, our lovely guest today is Kristin Pardy-Morris. Now, Kirstin is a 36-year-old indigenous mum of 3 humans and 3 husky dogs, working as an emergency medical technician in northern Canada, rural northern Canada, very rural, learning more about herself every day as she processes the roots of a decade of bulimia and as she works towards her full recovery. So, Kirstin, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yay, it's fabulous to have you here. So I was saying rural northern Canada because before we started, I was asking you about where you're living. So just tell everybody briefly your huge town you live in the middle of nowhere.
The middle of nowhere, yeah. So we live in Canada in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, but we live in the Labrador portion, which is mainly an indigenous population, 3 different indigenous groups, but it's made up of a bunch of mostly small communities, like 400, 500, 600 type population. Mine is my community's small, only about 400, 450 people or so, and we're several hours from the next nearest community. So we're pretty out there, pretty small.
Yes, it's just incredible to me living in London. It's like, oh
Yes.
my gosh, can't imagine it. But you grew up there.
Yes, I grew up here and my husband did as well. So it's the kind of place where to really appreciate it and to want to stay, you kind of have to have grown up this way. So we're very used to it.
Yeah. Wow. I find that fascinating. So now tell us, tell us about your bulimia and when, what the pattern was when you were growing up and how that developed.
Okay, so growing up, my bulimia didn't start till I was in my early 20s, but throughout my childhood and as far back as my memory goes, I always struggled with maybe, well, my weight, yes, but accepting my body, I guess, more so. Like I always felt like I knew what an acceptable body was by media standards, and knowing I didn't feel like I fit that, always thinking I wasn't good enough, I needed to change. I always kind of had those kind of thoughts growing up as a young child and a teenager. And growing up as a teenager, I always, I dieted a lot. I yo-yo dieted. I gained weight. I lost weight. I never until hitting recovery in my whole adult life was I ever a steady weight. I was always either gaining or losing.
Right.
And it was the dieting, like the yo-yo dieting, the back and forth, the restrictive dieting that eventually led to the bulimia when I was in my early 20s back in 2010.
So that kind of tips you over the edge, that
Yeah.
restriction. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And do you remember what was going on, or was there anything else going on at that time that would have sort of, I don't know, assisted that pathway?
The catalyst for the beginning of my eating disorder was I remember like the day that it happened. I had made a sports team back in 2010, and I felt like I needed to drop weight fast. Like I felt like I needed to drop a lot of weight fast, but I was so sick of restrictive dieting and restrictive eating, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired of it, but I still wanted to find a way to drop weight fast. And I mean, I knew what bulimia was. I knew what eating disorders were. I knew it was wrong. But I tried it. One day I wanted to eat. I was hungry because you know how restrictive eating is.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what if I just try it? What if I just try to purge? What would happen? And I tried it, and thinking, okay, well, and it worked. I mean, I did it. It worked, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this just like till for a couple of months until this is over, and then I'm just going to go back to normal. But of course that didn't happen. Instead, that day, that month, that decision led to it put me like in a trap that I couldn't get out of for the next 10 years. It was like literally walking into a cage and then the door locked behind me. And
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
yeah.
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 And did your family know? Were they aware of it?
No, for the entire I was for the entire 10 years that I was binging and purging, it was in complete secret. Nobody, not a single person in my life knew. My parents didn't know. Like I started in 2010. I got married the next year in 2011, and my husband had no idea. I purged daily, multiple times a day for 10 years, and even he didn't
Nobody
know.
knew.
Nobody knew. And I had complete plans on keeping it that way. I never did want to tell anybody. I thought, eventually when I'm ready to try to get rid of this eating disorder, I'll just do it on my own and nobody will ever know. It was a secret that I had planned to like just carry with me forever.
Yeah. And then, oh, what a trying time. What about when you fell pregnant? Because you've got 3 children, you said.
Yep, I do.
So
Well, yeah.
how did you cope with being pregnant the first time?
Well, my first pregnancy with my oldest son, that was back in 2006 and 2007, before my bulimia started. Now, my second pregnancy with my daughter in 2013, I was bulimic then. But I also find throughout those 10 years, the patterns, the behaviors, they kind of ebbed and flowed a bit. Like there were times when my behaviors and the symptoms were like really strong, and I was, really struggling and purging, multiple times a day immediately after eating type things. And then there were other times throughout the decade, when I was still bulimic, still symptomatic, and doing the behaviors, but they were, more laxed. I was, not as strict about it type thing. And so when I was pregnant with her, I was still bulimic, and I did still, have do bulimia behaviors, but it was, no, I didn't lose weight or anything with her. I still gained weight and had a healthy pregnancy. I just was, with her, it was much more, my behaviors weren't as strong, I guess I'll say. Now with when my youngest son, my toddler, he was born, I got pregnant with him right after I decided it was time to recover, time to get rid of this eating disorder and try to recover. So he came at a kind of a funny time, I guess, and he was a surprise. We didn't plan for him. So in October of 2019, I decided it's time to recover. I need to get rid of this eating disorder. It's taken up so much more of my life than I ever thought. And then in December, we got unexpectedly pregnant with him.
Yeah.
And of course, a couple months later, coronavirus happened. So it all kind of happened at the same
Yeah.
time. Unexpected pregnancy and lockdown and not being able to leave your house type thing. But because at that time I was committed to finally recovering,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, even though he was an unexpected pregnancy, and even though trying to recover while pregnant was a struggle, I do feel like pregnancy with him kind of maybe helped my process, in that I wanted to be healthy, I wanted to eat, and of course, being pregnant, you're supposed to gain weight. So that kind of told my brain, okay, it's okay to gain weight, it's okay to eat, it's okay to try to recover. And
So in a way, it kind of set the seeds.
yeah, kind of
Or after your
yeah,
pregnancy.
yeah, yes. And then of course it was much easier once he was born to just keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah. So what do you think, Kirstin? So when you made that decision that you wanted to step onto that recovery path, so what do you think helped you, assisted you in stepping onto it at that time?
So I was perfectly okay with going through the rest of my life, before I decided to recover, kind of in complete denial, kind of, I had this bulimia secret nobody knew. It was like a whole other section of my life that only I knew about, and I was very much in denial about how bad the eating disorder was and how much of a hold it actually had on my life. I thought, okay, this is just a little thing that only I know about. I'm totally in control of it. It's not that big of a deal. And I was perfectly okay going through like the rest of my life thinking that way, and thinking, okay, my life is fine as long as it looks fine to everybody else. My life is fine as long as everybody who's looking in thinks it's good. I was only worried about how it looked to everybody else, and I thought I was, in control of the eating disorder. But the catalyst for my wanting to recover actually happened in the summer of 2019, when what I thought, of course, naively, was my happy, healthy marriage crumbled. And my husband actually had an affair, and then he admitted it to me. And I was looking back, of course, hindsight's 2020, and I can see where everything started to fall apart. And of course, my eating disorder was such a huge part of my struggles with myself.
Yeah.
But it was almost losing my marriage, and then of course my whole family and everything I knew about the way that I lived, that kind of kicked me up out of the big eating disorder depression hole that I was in, and said, okay, if you want to save all this, if you want to keep your family, you've got to change. Like this clearly it's not just you, it's not just affecting you. I thought my eating disorder only affected me. Like I thought I was only hurting myself. I really didn't see how much it was hurting my marriage, my family, my kids, how I parented, everything else in my life. Of course it touched, I just didn't see it. So
I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Because when you're in the depths of it, you don't, you think you've got everything under control.
Yeah.
The truth is you haven't.
I absolutely thought, when I'm ready to stop, I'll just be able to stop. It'll be no big deal. And I'm only hurting myself, when in reality that was absolutely not true. It was actually affecting every single aspect of my life. I just didn't see it. And so when I almost lost it all, that's when I said, okay, this is clearly bigger than you ever thought. And it's time to seek help and get recovered and take your life back, kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow. And so what help did you get?
Well, no, I live in a very small town, so it was hard. The first thing I did, though, when I decided it was time, was I went to our little clinic and talked to the nurse, and told another adult for the first time in my life what had been going on. And of
It was
course,
huge.
and even up until then, I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the clinic, I'm going to tell the nurse, and she's going to hand me some pamphlet and give me some information on how to recover, and that's going to be it. Like,
yeah, and then I'll just be able to take them away, read them, and I'll be
yes. And she'll say, okay, here's what you can do, go home and do it. I was that naive. But when I told her, she was like, okay, I'm going to get the addictions counselor on the line. We're going to set you up with these appointments. Come into the emergency room right now. We're going to hook you up to the EKG and make sure that, your heart is okay. And I'm going to set you up with a bone density scan. And, she was like, getting all these things in order because she was like really seriously concerned about me and my health. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a bigger deal than I ever thought. You know what I mean? Like I was that naive, thinking it's not that big of a deal, because I guess I just have lived with it for so long that I made it not that big of a deal. But in reality, it is a very big deal. And so that was my first kind of inkling that, okay, this is not as small as I thought, because of the way my very kind nurse reacted. But I did get set up with a whole bunch of appointments at that point, and I did get approved for an outpatient therapy program, recovery program, a provincial one. But of course, I live so far away from where that clinic actually was, and at that time I had 2 children and working full time, and I really couldn't leave them. So I said, can I try some other things from home to see, because up until that point I had never tried to recover at all. Like I hadn't tried anything. So I said, let me try some things at home, see what I can do, see if I can figure something out. And if I feel like I need to go and do that program, then they can hold my place for a later date. But then of course, 2 months later, COVID hit and everything shut down. So there wouldn't have been an option to actually go and do it anyway. But and then I got pregnant and
yeah. So what did you try at home at that time?
I found this program online. Oh, I can't even remember what it was called now. It actually just came up in my Facebook news feed, like, Big Brother's always watching, of course. So I guess my computer,
how bizarre is that?
Figured out what I was doing, and this program came up in my news feed, and it was the first one I ever saw, and I clicked it, and I signed up for that. It was like an 11-week online type thing, which there are many different ways to try to recover from an eating disorder, right? There's different kinds of therapies, and what works for some people might not work for other people type thing. But I tried this one, and it was very early on in my recovery journey. I did find it helped me to really go back into my history. There was a lot of like meditative stuff involved in it, kind of thing. It really did help me go back in my mind and go back through my history and try to figure out all the little seeds that were planted as to maybe why this happened to me, why I was so susceptible, type of thing. But before I finished it, of course, before I finished that 11-week program, I did end up pregnant. And I do feel like it was maybe the pregnancy that really helped me to, give myself permission to eat and keep the food down and get over this mental block of gaining weight type thing, which is what I struggled with a lot.
Yeah. And then what about after the pregnancy?
After the pregnancy, I struggled, but not so much with the eating disorder. After the pregnancy, funnily enough, I feel like I did struggle with postpartum depression, which is funny because with my first 2 kids, I didn't at all. Right. But with this one,
it kind of makes sense that you would with this one, because were you having therapy though at all? Were you having therapy at all
during this process? No, I wasn't. I wasn't having.
So then all those feelings and emotions rising to the surface. And then kind of makes sense really that something's got to happen really to get your attention, to get you to start to tune into those feelings.
So funnily enough, I did struggle with postpartum depression after this last pregnancy, and I struggled with it kind of all in my head for almost a full year. Like I was just like, oh, this is like, I know it's just hard because he's a newborn and this season is going to pass. And I knew that because I'd already done it twice before. And I was just like, I can get through this, it's not that bad. Of course, I'm always in denial with myself about how bad things are. But the summer after he was born, when he was close to a year, I felt like it got really bad and it wasn't getting any better. And I wanted to talk to somebody about it. I was after having a couple of panic attacks. And so I went to the clinic to see a mental health nurse, and I talked to her about it, and she gave me some tips and stuff. And I used them, but I still felt like it wasn't quite enough. And funnily enough, there were a couple of other things that happened at the same time. I follow someone who struggles with anxiety on Facebook, and he made a post on his birthday that really like caught my attention. And I thought, that is exactly how I feel, like how he described he was feeling dealing with his anxiety on his birthday. I thought, that is exactly how I feel. Maybe I have something more, like maybe it's not just postpartum depression. Maybe it's not just bulimia. Maybe there's something more. And then, what else was it? So then I Googled anxiety, and I came upon this article that said, it was talking about anxiety and how it relates to eating disorders. And there was a statistic in this article that said up to 80% of people who struggle with bulimia will also struggle with anxiety and be diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had never read that statistic before. Like, even after seeking help and, talking to professionals, I had never read a statistic that said eating disorders and anxiety often go hand in hand. And I thought, oh my gosh, this, I probably have, GAD as well. And so then I made an appointment with a doctor who only travels in every 6 weeks or so to our town here. And when I went to see her, I had made a list of, because I had kind of felt like I maybe had been brushed off in the past, and I kind of wanted to really drive home, this is how I feel. Like, maybe it's not that bad, because again, I always doubt myself, but I wrote down every single thing that I felt like maybe made me different than someone who doesn't have anxiety, and I put it all in a note. And when I went to see this doctor, I sat down and I rattled through this whole script that I had made. And I was like talking really fast, because that's how I get when I'm nervous. And before I was halfway through that note, before I even got halfway through it, she stopped me and she said, okay, you need to stop. And I was like in tears at this point, because I was like just trying to say everything that I wanted to say, and it was making me very emotional. And she said, okay, stop. And she said, yes, I hear you. And I said, what do you think? Like, what do you think is wrong with me? And she said, I think you probably have like a mixture of anxiety and maybe some OCD in there as well. And I said, really? Like, you got all that just from me saying these things? And she said, yep. And I said, oh my God, I felt so validated, so finally so heard, like, okay, maybe the way I felt my entire life maybe it wasn't normal. Maybe it wasn't just my personality. Maybe it wasn't just my whole type A, need to have things in a row, need to be in control of everything. Maybe I have anxiety as well. And she said, she offered to put me on a medication if that's what I wanted. And that's what I actually had gone there hoping she would do, because I felt like my postpartum depression combined with maybe this anxiety for the last year, it was more than I was able to handle. And she chose a medication for me that she knew wouldn't have anything to do with weight gain, because she knew my history of bulimia. And she told me to try it, and I tried it, and it has made such a difference for my anxiety. But I had no idea that if you're struggling with an eating disorder, there may be other things that are affecting you as well. I had no idea. I just always thought it was, just an eating disorder, but it turns out it wasn't. And it ended up being anxiety as well, which I feel like maybe had a hand in the postpartum depression. And anyway, all that to say, you really need to look out for yourself and be an advocate for yourself, and try to, if you don't feel like you've gotten the right answers, just keep looking. And I feel like I'm in a 1000% better place right now than I have ever been in the whole history of my life. And it's because of that. And I'm so thankful and grateful for that.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing to hear that, how far you have come.
I've never told that story to anyone but my husband and my close friends. I'm going to make a video about it tell my viewers as well, but I just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Gosh. That's just incredible how far you have come in such a short space of time, really, considering with how long you did have it.
And the funny thing is, it feels like it's slow. Like, it feels like the process is slow. I'm the kind of person who, once I've made a decision and I'm like, okay, this needs to happen, I want it to happen like right away. So it feels like it's been slow, but maybe it has been faster than I think.
Yeah. And did you, so you haven't had any therapy at all?
Not besides that private 11-week program that I did back in the beginning. No, most of it has just been watching YouTube videos, finding, I did join a couple of Facebook groups, support groups, listening to people's stories in that group, reading their stories, but it's mostly been kind of like a internal soul searching, figure out who you are kind of a journey.
Yeah. And did you read any books?
I did. I read several right in the beginning when I was trying to figure it, because for those whole 10 years, I didn't so much as Google the word bulimia, because I didn't really want to know. Like, I knew what it was. I knew I had it. But I didn't want to know any of the information, like any of the statistics. I didn't want to, I didn't even say the word out loud, because of course I was living with it in complete silence. I didn't even speak the word out loud for 10 years. So once I finally decided, okay, I need to recover, that's when I finally, Googled it and tried to find out all this information. And I read several books, which were very, very helpful. And I find this is where I kind of learned, everybody's journey is different. Everyone's disease is a little bit different, because all the books I read, the women in them who were telling their stories, they all had a little bit of a different journey. Like, some people, it started different for them. Maybe it was trauma, maybe it was dieting like me, and their recoveries looked different, because some people purge through exercise, some people purge through not eating, some people purge through actual purging, so everyone, I found those stories so helpful, simply in letting me know that, other people deal with this and you're not alone, and everyone's disease is a little bit
absolutely
different.
because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're on your own. So having the Facebook groups and talking to other people, it's just very powerful. To help you not feel so alone. And depending how comfortable you feel with talking, chatting online with other people, that can be really helpful, can't it?
Absolutely.
And your struggles and your difficulties. It's amazing how far you've come.
Thank you so much.
And such an amazing role model for your children as well as they get older.
I hope so. I hope by, I did struggle with that too, like making my story public and putting it out there. My daughter's only 9 right now, but eventually, she'll become a teenager and an adult. And I did worry that, one day she is going to see this and she's going to see my story, and what will she think? Will she think, oh, maybe this will happen to me too? Will she think, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, I struggled with that, but I think the most important thing is to own your journey, own your struggle, and just be honest about it. And that's all you can do, is to be honest and
to guide her. Now you have all that knowledge to guide her in the right direction.
And
you get her talking about her feelings, and obviously about the healthy eating, and you can really help her positively from what you've learned.
And to try to raise them in a household that does not focus on appearances or weight or diet culture or anything like that, and to just hopefully raise them in complete acceptance for who they already are, and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I know that when I fell pregnant with my 3rd son, I was so concerned that it was going to be a girl, because at that time I didn't think I would be able to do it. I didn't think I'd be able to bring up a girl after all that I went through.
I totally feel that.
And so I believe I timed it right, so it was a boy. I had my own theory about how to do that, and I'd spent months and months and months figuring this out. And right at the last minute, I organized it so it would be a boy. That's what I truly believe, because I really didn't think that I could cope with a girl.
It is
because of my eating disorder.
Yeah, it absolutely is so scary. Like, I grew up, and I feel like this is part of my history. Like, I was a young child and then a teenager through the entire 90s and then the early 2000s, when, you know, the culture around women's bodies was just thinness, the thinner the better, stick thin. And of course there was no social media then, and so everything that we saw growing up was either in magazines or, you know, in a music video or a television or a reality TV show. That was all we really saw, what was curated by the media. And it was just, everything was diet culture and as thin as possible. You know, it was Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and Atkins and all of that stuff. And so thinness and being thin being the only type of body that was accepted and, you know, deemed beautiful, had such an impact on me growing up. And I feel like now, you know, say what you will about social media, you know, it definitely has its drawbacks and its negativities, but I also feel like because it gives, you know, everyday people a platform, you know, for just regular people to come on and tell your story type thing, I feel like there's a shift in, you know, the body positivity movement, and regular, you know, everyday women coming on and saying, look, this is me. I'm not society's, you know, deemed standard of beauty. This is my body, whatever it looks like, and I actually love it, and I actually accept it. And, you know, I'm not gonna try to force myself into a box that society
because
says.
we would never hear about anybody saying that sort of thing.
Right. And ever. I'm so, like, I watch these women get on, you know, TikTok or Instagram or whatever and do these and say these things, and I think, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Like, you are incredible. I am positive that when I was that age, or, you know, when I was growing up, I would not have been able to do that. I would not have had the courage to do that, to find acceptance in myself. And now you're doing it, and you're putting it out there for, you know, the young girls behind you to come on and see and watch you. And it has such an impact. Like, it really does have such an impact and make such a difference. And I just wish that I had been able to see women like that stand up and say those things when I was growing up, instead of just all the things that I did see. Like, it really does make such a difference to see people who look like you say, I love myself and you can too, and it's okay, type thing.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's so important.
It is.
So important. Oh, Kirstin, thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited.
I know, me too. And
it is an honor.
And we're all so proud of you.
So
proud of how well you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. So stay focused, because you can do it.
Thank you so much. And same to any other woman or young woman or girl who is listening or watching. Same to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kirstin. So that's all for today's episode of Bulimia Sucks, and thank you for listening. And before we go, make sure you show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on wherever you listen to it, on Castbox or Google Podcasts or Spotify or TuneIn Radio or wherever. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you in the next episode.